Burning Platform, as is the case every Thursday, is brought to you by Nando's. Nando's are proudly associated with this part of the show where we get to dissect and figure out and analyze what craziness is going on around us. Sometimes we get it right. Hey, Pumi. Sometimes we manage to make sense of this craziness, but sometimes we need a lot of help from you and from our experts, and we try to find a variety of people to help us do exactly that. So the Burning Platform, and today with Yao Pepra. Now, I've known Yao for years, so full disclosure, he and I have been friends for what? How long is it, Yao? It's probably like 15, 20 years that I've known you.
That's 20, eh?
That's how old we are.
No. I know. Hello, Pumi.
So let me give you a little bit of background about Yao. He's been in business for a long time. He was a shareholder in a big advertising agency. They focused on below-the-line marketing. He was involved in setting up a business, online advertising in Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, among others. He's also been part of a team that set up the Silibona Educational Trust, which sponsors young women from previously disadvantaged backgrounds who attend university. And he's in the board of trustees of the St. Dunstan's Association for South African War-Blinded Veterans, among other things. And he's been involved in a number of others too, which he can tell us about if he feels like it. But your CV is not unimpressive, Mr. Pepra.
Thank you, Mr. Cliff. It's good to see you again. Greetings, Miss Pumi. Are you well?
Society. Yes, Pumi, you guys know each other, don't you? Have you met before?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. Not in the business.
Despite both of you being in advertising at some point, neither of you have met. That's very, very interesting. Okay. So, guys, there's a lot to talk about this morning. I don't want to start with the US of A because we've got our own stories here. So we can go to that later on. But I noticed, Yao, in the notes that Sia sent me, that you've just finished reading George Orwell's 1984 again, and you started Aldous Huxley's Brave New World.
Finished that as well.
So, which of those two books do you think is most relevant to what the world is going through at the moment with, the lockdowns and coronavirus and what you see in the United States and this whole breakdown in trust that we're all going through, I think, with authority, with politicians, with the medical fraternity, even with science to a degree? How are you feeling about that? And just give people an idea of why it's a good idea to read either of those books because of this dystopian world that we're in at the moment.
For me, like what struck me is when those books were written and how relevant they are, if not even more relevant now. I mean, like what, 1948 was 84. It's crazy. And it's just a good read to just get people in to think about where the world is at. But, when you read those books, though, you could also, I guess, transpose your own thinking into which is which, right? Because the current world that we live in, is it working? Right? Is it what Orwell describes as the controlling state? Is it what Huxley writes off as the Brave New World? I don't know. Like it's just, as humans, we can, like, that's why I just sit there and I just, like, human beings fascinate me, man. Like, they fascinate me no end because we're always looking for what makes us different. We're always looking to search for what makes us different as opposed to finding our commonalities. And I think if you drill down, we're all the same, really. We all just want to just get by. We just want to be able to provide for our families and not be dicks.
On that note, I think a lot of people are also getting a bit tired of everything being politicized. And I mean, this coronavirus is a great example because everything about it, mask wearing, testing, vaccines, every part of it has become a political playing thing. It's like every politician is seen as he's seen this as, or she's seen this as an opportunity to wield that particular crisis as a weapon for their side. And maybe we got to start with this. By the way, I'll address the questions. A lot of people asking, where's Canthan this morning? Canthan's taking a little break from the show. He's decided he needs just a few weeks because he felt like he was saying the same thing every week. And the moment anybody feels like that, they must just take a breath, which he's decided to do. And he'll decide when it's time to come back and rejoin the show. So if you're wondering where Canthan is, which a lot of people are, Dogozo and Anushka and Duncan, all asking where Cantonese this morning. He'll be rejoining us when he says he's got something to say. He doesn't want to end up saying the same thing week after week. But Pumi, maybe we should start with this. Everything is being politicized, but also I think there are a lot of people who are starting to realize that politics is not the answer to every question. No. And that there are a lot of politicians who are not only very bad at being politicians, but are also utopian. They have some idea of the fact that they could manage everything a whole lot better. And we've got books like the ones that Yao is reading at the moment, which show time and time again that, in fact, they make things very much worse and not better.
But you see, the thing is, all politics is personal. Yeah. All politics is personal. And what we never used to have is we never used to have an outlet for our personal feelings about the politics. And what we have today is everybody is essentially a media. Everybody's holding their own loudspeaker, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's video messaging, whether it's Twitter, right? So what we have is we have everybody, like I was saying yesterday, everybody's feeling all their feelings, which they have always done. But now they're able to put them out into the world. And more and get caught up in it. Think about dinner parties. What we used to have before is you'd be at a dinner party with your friends and you would inevitably get into political discussions and what you feel like. But because it's your friends, you're not fighting as much as people are fighting on Twitter. But it's all personal. All politics is personal. And it has always been. It's just that now we get to be in the heads of everybody, even people you don't know.
Well, I think what you're pointing out here is so true, but let's go to an even older book than Aldous Huxley or George Orwell, and let's look at the Bible, because when the Tower of Babel enters the biblical story, the reason that everything goes crazy and that God decides to flood the earth is because everybody's speaking a different language at the Tower of Babel, and they're all shouting at each other and no one's listening. And I kind of get the feeling that that's almost what's happening on social media all the time, is you got people shouting at each other. Nobody's listening. It's all a big din, a big cacophony of noise. And eventually it does no good. Now, social media in the last couple of days have not covered themselves in glory. Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, even platforms like Apple and Amazon and Google have done themselves no favors by deciding to make Donald Trump a pariah on their various platforms, and also to disconnect a whole lot of people from those platforms on the basis they say that, you know, the Capitol riots are a pretext for them doing things to keep people safe and to allow people to give their free opinion, as long as it's an opinion that those companies agree with. Now, I'm very stuck. I'm very confused, and I'm very unclear in my own mind about how I feel about this, because a private company should, of course, be able to ban someone, cut someone off, not allow someone to sprout vitriol or nastiness, especially if it does conform to the definitions of hate speech, and you've got your own code. And it's your company, you can do what you want with it, Jack Dorsey. But to actually prevent a man who's a sitting president, even if it is only for a few more days, from being able to communicate through your platform, does start up a whole lot of other problems. And even Angela Merkel, I noticed, said she thinks it's a very bad idea that big tech in Silicon Valley is shutting people down, is preventing people from speaking, and allowing, clearly because they have political interests themselves, people to speak. We know that part of the reason Silicon Valley is doing this is because they know that the Democrats are going to come after them if they don't. The Democrats now have the House, the Senate, and the Oval Office, and that they will be likely to punish Silicon Valley if Silicon Valley doesn't adopt the policy concerns of the Democratic Party. So they're preemptively making a move. What do you think about censorship, and what do you guys believe the right route is to take from here on?
Gareth, I'm on the fence a little bit, but on the one hand, I understand exactly what you said in terms of it's my company. I've got what works for me and what I aspire to promote. And if you're not sticking to it, then the internet is it's ubiquitous, I suppose. You can find your platform that speaks to your people. You don't have to use my Twitter, Facebook, etc. to get your word out.
So what they did is that was the policy of like Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
They said, well, why don't you go and start your own business? And then they started Parler. And now all of the people who control the servers on which Parler is, and I've never been on Parler, so I don't know for myself.
Shut it down.
But Amazon, who controls most of the servers in the world, have shut that down. So now, it's like you can be conservative, but only if you live in Mars. If you live in Mars, you could be conservative. But here on Earth, we're just not allowing that point of view.
But you say that though, and then on the other hand, I sit there and I think, so imagine in the early 40s, if there was a company like Twitter that could have stopped Hitler from saying what he was saying, would the world not have benefited from that? You see what I'm saying? Because when do you draw a line? When does it become too much? Because I mean, from the beginning, this man has been saying what he's been saying. He's been riling up his people. I mean, like a lot of it is, in my humble opinion, is baseless because he's had a month to prove a lot of his claims. No one has taken anything anywhere. Like nothing has been proven to me. Not one single shred of evidence has come to the fore. You know, like when people were protesting in the Arab Spring, for example, they were protesting for something, right? They were protesting for some sort of human rights. When people were protesting about people getting killed for no reason, they were protesting for a valid reason. It was something that had evidence. There was a guy who kneeled on another human being for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, sucked the life out of him with his hand into the pocket, thinking that he believes that he's got every right to do this, right? So this guy, like that thing, I mean, I think COVID has to be thanked for this because a lot of people were sitting at home with nothing much to do, and they saw this and it's like, this is not the world that we should be living in, and they protested for weeks, right? That you can support because there is evidence thereof. People have been, for the longest time, suffering injustice, right? And it gets brushed off, like, because I've got to go to work, man. It's fine. I get upset for a day or so and move on. This thing, people had time to stop and say, no, we can't anymore. Social media took its charge and they protested for something which a lot of people believed is valid because it wasn't just in America, it was the world over. Now, this guy has been spewing vitriol for the longest time, a lot of it unfounded, right? I mean, I don't care if people support Trump. You're more than welcome to support this guy. Like, it's fine, you must, because he doesn't appeal to me, but he'll appeal to you, and you're allowed, like, it's allowed for that to happen.
I totally agree with you, but my concern is if you shut down these avenues for people like Trump and Trump supporters to be able to vent, all they're going to do is take that stuff underground, and that's where it does become dangerous. And you drew the parallel of like, if we could have shut Hitler down in you could have shut Hitler down, but the circumstances around his rise would still have been there. 70-odd million people voted for this guy in an election.
But this is not...
You don't get to wipe them off the face of the earth.
But he wasn't shut down because of his dissenting view. He was not shut down because he was complaining. He was shut down because where he had got to is he was inciting violence in people. That's why he was shut down. He was inciting violence. So for 4 years, when he wasn't saying, let's storm the Capitol, when he wasn't saying, let's go in there and show these people, let's make them do what we want them to do, he wasn't saying that for 4 years. For 4 years, he was spewing a whole lot of other stuff. Suddenly, he has turned from being a person that says, I don't like this, so-and-so is you grab them by the pussy, all of that stuff he was allowed to say. But now, when he stands up in front of a crowd and says, we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, we're going to hold them to account until they do what we want them to do. That's bullshit.
But I think we're conflating issues here. I mean, we can't throw grab him by the pussy in with these are good people at Charlottesville, in with storm the Capitol, which he didn't say in clear, unambiguous terms either. A lot of this stuff still has to be proven. It's amazing to me the double standard that Twitter and Facebook and Instagram have. When you agree with them, you could basically threaten other people with death, and they don't necessarily take you off their platform. And we've got people like Maduro and Putin who are able to keep using these platforms. And these are not necessarily better people than Donald Trump is, and they don't necessarily say things that he does, but we know a lot of it is bluster. It's just very politically convenient for those platforms at the moment to be doing this.
Gareth, as I say, I'm on the fence a lot on this because, as you say, there's a lot of credit in what you're saying, but I mean, like, what happened? I suppose, and what happened on the when was it, on the 6th of January, was, I mean, like, not every single person. There was a couple of 100,000 people that went there, right? But not every single person stormed the Capitol. So I can't say that every single person that was there was. It's human beings, man. It's like everything you've said as well. It's like, it's us, like politicians. Like, it's us. It's we the ones who listen and make up our minds to act. It's not politicians. Politicians are a bunch of self-serving. A lot of them, a bunch of self-serving people that are just there. They don't give a rat's ass about us, man.
And let's remember that part of the reason that Donald Trump even became the person that he has been for the last 4 years is because people said, we don't want politicians anymore. We want something different. They got their wish, and now they're not sure whether they liked it or not. I think the answer to bad speech is more speech, not less. And I'm concerned that if we shut this stuff down, people are going to question the integrity of these platforms going forward because...
But that's fine, and they get off, right?
Yeah, of course. Well, this is the point. And I think a lot of people for privacy reasons are also choosing to get on these platforms. But let us leave it alone. I don't think we're going to solve this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the world, right?
Brought something up about Uganda. I mean, one of the things that we've seen, which is vastly different with what's happened in the US, where Museveni has just decided, shut it all down. I don't want people talking, and that is far more dangerous, I think, than private companies deciding, I don't want this kind of person on my platform.
Well, I think you could compare the two, because in the same breath, Twitter is saying that Museveni can't just switch them off in Uganda, but Twitter says that they can switch off Donald Trump. So it's what's good for us is not good for good for the goose, not good for the Uganda, so to speak. Let's leave that alone for the moment. I do want us to talk a little bit about our own lockdown, which has now been extended
3,000 years.
It feels like they're never going to stop. And there was that video that went around of Cyril laughing and having fun while all of us are starting to lose our livelihoods and people are under huge pressure and certain people will never go back to work. But here's the clip of him at the National Coronavirus Command Council. Tell me if you think it's unfair that we've taken this, the context having been that this was during the initial hard lockdown. And he jokes that he hasn't mentioned what year it'll end.
Way of ramping this up even beyond the end of the lockdown. And I don't know when the lockdown will end. Some people are saying the 16th of April. But when we announced it, I didn't say what year it will end.
Meanwhile, that's this lockdown has done immeasurable damage to the country and to the people of this country and to our economy. I don't know how our finance minister is going to find the money for his upcoming budget, because I don't know how many people are even going to be able to declare anything but a loss over the last year, even those businesses which did survive, not to mention the ones that didn't. And now we're stuck in this for another 30 days. In fact, it ends on the 15th of February, this particular level 3 restriction. And there seems to be no way out. And I'm not saying it's just us, because obviously there are lots of countries in the world that have implemented the same thing. But governments like Boris Johnson's in the UK going into their third hard lockdown because the first two worked so well. I mean, do we not have any other ideas? Have we not come up with a better plan after a year almost of these people with their club feet stepping on each other and politicians having no ability to admit that they were wrong at any stage here, even though we know they've been wrong demonstrably along the way?
That's precisely the problem, is no new ideas. No new ideas. So they're just going to stick to what they've done before. And I think the worst thing about that clip, listening to Cyril and his cabinet laughing like that, is it's just so completely tone deaf. It's completely tone deaf. I mean, I think all of us in the workplaces, no matter how much pressure we're under, we try to have lighthearted moments. But that is, for us, it's galling, I think, for South Africans to be in the position that we're in, and then to hear our cabinet ministers laughing about it. That's what's galling about it, is it's just completely tone deaf.
I actually wanted to say something before we started this thing, because I wanted to put out a disclaimer, because I currently work for a government agency, and I'd loathe for them to suffer any disrepute because of what I say on the show. So if anyone gets offended by what I say here, it's me who's saying it, not my company. So on this lockdown, right, initially, and I still it's hard, man, because what to do? Everyone's doing the same thing, right? What to do? Like we're hard on our government. Like, and don't get me wrong, I don't support the ANC. Like I've struggled with them for the longest time, because we've had so much opportunity and so much potential to be much further than where we are currently. But we've scored so many own goals, and we keep on scoring them. Like, for example, so my brother's a doctor, right? My god sister's a doctor. During the first lockdown, the ban on booze made a lot of sense, because the ERs were getting overwhelmed. They were getting overwhelmed. Like, it made sense in terms of they just didn't have space to treat. Like, say, for example, they're trying to resusc or trying to deal with a COVID positive patient, then some dude walks in there with a panga in his head because you've been in a bar brawl. You can't stop and test for alcohol first. You have to stop the bleed on your floor, right?
Yeah.
So it made sense, but it also helped us, because our fatality rate wasn't that big in the initial stages, because we learned how other people were dealing with this thing, right? Like, people, like, intubation might not have, it was the first option that people went to, but then they started seeing, okay, maybe oxygen first, so we managed to learn how to treat this thing better in the first place. So, but the economy got perked. I mean, my job is to try and help companies grow their businesses and stuff, and there's lots of blood on the floor. Tourism industry is decimated. But the thing is it our government's fault that this has happened? I'm not sure, because our borders are open now. Not so many people are coming, right? Yeah. They're not coming. So what can we do? It's hard. I mean, it's easy to blame stuff, but I mean, we went back to the beginning and politicizing everything, like wearing masks and stuff. I was at the gym the other day. I mean, I'm not supposed to be going, but I go anyway. And some people wanted to ask me and get into a conversation about Corona and masks. I was like, dude, if it's a conspiracy theory, I don't care. Like, I don't care. It's here. I've got mates that are dying from this thing. Correct. Put on the mask. It's like what I do by putting on a mask is showing that if you get it, it's not because of me. That's why I put it on, not because of anything, not because of any politician. Like, if I'm coughing, I put my hand in front of it, it stops it from spreading out. So if I put this thing on and I cough, it stops it from hitting you. Just, that's all. Anyway.
Well, I totally agree with you, and often it's not about you and your own discomfort or your level of conspiracy theory buy-in about whether or not these vaccines are some kind of control mechanism, or whether or not people are being led by the nose. All of that's unimportant. As you say, it's useful to go through the motions of this thing, to do what you can, just so that if you get sick, it's not my fault. Because we do hear stories, and there are people, healthy people, who've had very adverse effects. Some have died. We've heard of very unhealthy people who've also been affected. And it seems to me there isn't yet a good feel for who it is that this thing takes out. I mean, there are young, healthy people who've gone, obviously a small proportion of them. But I think there's been hysteria about this too, which needed to be controlled. And the people to guide us through hysteria are meant to be the sensible leaders, and I just don't see too many of them in the world. Sensible leaders. I don't see a lot of them in the world.
You put those two together, though. Sensible. But I mean, in all honesty, as I say, like, dude, like, I mean, it's hard. But the thing is, Gareth, I get upset with us a lot, though. Like, as humans, we always look to these people to be our guiding light. We should lead, right? We should lead. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we can control that we choose not to control. We just say, no, government says, or politician says, and it's politician's fault. What are we doing? Like, how do you stop this thing? Like, just make sure that if you go to a place, you just try to keep away from other people. Like, you've got the control. You don't have to listen to what this bro is saying. Well, you know what I'm saying?
Let me ask you something personal, because I know that you still have a lot of contact with Ghana. You're originally Ghanaian, and you've been in South Africa for a very long time, but you keep tabs on what's happening there. Ghana just had their election. Yeah. And Ghana's also dealt with COVID. How are things over there in that country, and what is the situation with COVID at the moment?
Yeah, last time I checked, the death rate was about 300 odd, which isn't bad. This was like, I think about a month ago I checked, it was 310 or something, which isn't bad at all. But are they recording the numbers correctly? But I mean, it's my sister's there, and she seems to think that it's fine. My folks went to go for a couple of funerals early Feb last year, and they got locked down. And I was so pleased that they were there, because like we were going out spinning out of control, and then they were there. And I don't know if it's because of the heat. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it seems like they've got it under control from what I read.
I mean, certainly Africa has had it better so far than they originally predicted, and they said that we were going to be ravaged by this thing. And thank God, I mean, South Africa, notwithstanding, where we've got the worst numbers on the continent, but the rest of Africa seems to be faring reasonably well.
Because every day somebody's trying to kill us, boss. Every single day somebody's trying to kill us. So we've built antibodies for everything.
You got antibodies.
It's TB, it's malaria. They're coming for us.
So, Yao, what did happen in the elections, and can you give us some insight into what's going on there? We don't often pay attention to elections of our fellow African countries as much as we do, like Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But tell us what's up for grabs there, and who the new government are.
Well, the new government is the old government. So the National Patriotic Party (NPP) kept the seats, but the parliament is hung, which is great, because now what should happen is they'll lead by coalition, right? It's going to be tricky, but it's good though, because like as I say, like I mean, my old man is like a diehard NPP guy from day one, you know. But I still believe all politicians are the same. The NDC, which was Mahama's government, they were close. It was a very, very closely fought election, and the NPP kept the government for now. But Parliament is hung, which is great, because then they have to find consensus. They can't just, you know, I mean, it's just sad, because like a country like Ghana, for example, which is one of the biggest gold producers in the world, should be a whole lot further than it is currently. But what I do appreciate about that country is the fact that elections are close. There's very little violence. People just hand over and they move on, you know. And like if you look at the West African region, touch wood, it's been one of the most politically stable. Yeah, of all of them, you know. And that's I suppose it's testament to us as Ghanaians, because we're pretty soft, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We're like, nobody wants to die, nobody wants to get blood. So we'll see what happens. I mean, like the last 4 years, people have been quite disappointed with the government, but they've shown progress. You know, we've had, I think it was 6% growth in the economy over the last year or so, which isn't too bad. But I mean, if you're coming for a relatively low base compared to South Africa, it's still going forward, you know. So there's lots of potential in that place, and there's too much potential. You know, they've got educated people, you've got resources, but once again, it's poor leadership, man.
Unfortunately, that's the plague of Africa, poor leadership.
Yeah.
You could argue.
Coincidentally, we were reading up last night that
the plague of the world, Pums. I mean, you know, who has got it right in the last year and a half? Who?
New Zealand, bro.
New Zealand is so far away from everyone else.
And they're such a small island.
They would have got it anyway if they just to say, all right, everybody just carry on with what you were busy with before.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pums, I interrupted you. You were saying something?
No, I was just saying, coincidentally, we were just speaking of the plague of bad leadership in Africa. 1921 was the second Pan-African Congress held in the UK. 100 years ago, and here we are 100 years later. The AU is still toothless. We still have incredibly old.
So is the UN.
Yeah, well, they let them have their own problems. I mean, I look at things like, we're talking about our borders being open. If you look at what happened, if you look at what happened in Swaziland, if you look at what happened with Mozambique, at the end of the year, at the beginning of this year, is you have Africans from everywhere trying to escape their governments and their countries because they live in such desperation. We're not even going to talk about Museveni, because that's, you know, is horrible what's happening over there. In Uganda, they've got a median age of 15, and the median age of their cabinet is like 70, something ridiculous like that. Right? I mean, bullshit.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Like, we've got the youngest continent run by the oldest people. Some of them don't even know how to send emails, and then they want to tell
about the 4IR.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't even have power.
So, Pumi, you mentioned Mozambique, and I know we're jumping around a lot here, and we will get back to America in a minute, because obviously people are, the wheels are turning there, and there's a lot going on. But Mozambique is very interesting, and there's a huge amount of activity going on that we don't pay enough attention to, because this is a country that we share a border with, and we've got a number of massive political forces at play there. There's, first of all, the above board stuff, and I say that with huge amount of trepidation, but the Chinese involvement in the Mozambican economy is enormous, and it's not a fair relationship. It's not peer on peer. It's definitely a master-servant relationship for various reasons. But that's worth discussing. And then the other thing worth discussing in Mozambique at the moment is the insurgence of religious fanatics who are converting people either with money, saying to someone, unless you and your family convert, you have two options. We'll either give you $1,000 per family, which is actually happening there in the north of Mozambique, to convert to Islam, in which case you can get this $1,000, and more importantly, you can live. Or you can refuse me and you can be converted at the barrel of a gun. Now, this kind of thing is, this is really, really upsetting, and it's happening, and there's nothing we can do to stop it, seemingly, in the north of Mozambique, and it's getting closer and closer to our borders. This is something to worry about.
Yeah, it is. I mean, especially the way you put it, because I don't know. I just thought that the insurgents were just coming and raiding, but I didn't know that they were doing things like that as well. It's concerning. It's sad though, because I'm not Muslim. I'm Christian, but I don't believe that Islam in itself as a religion is a bad thing. I don't think all religions are bad. It's just us as human beings who actually practice it make it bad, because we want to take the role as God. Hey?
I was being careful to say fanatics, because
I got you.
Difference between someone who's religious and someone who's a fanatic, and also this proselytizing is fine, but conversion at the barrel of a gun is obviously
it's bollocks. It's nonsense.
So I don't know how we deal with this, because clearly the Mozambican government is in no position to be able to tell anyone what to do, even their own citizens. They can't protect their own citizens. As Pumi says, the AU is toothless. So how exactly do we see that ordinary people are protected in a situation like this? Because these people are, if they can't find protection in Mozambique, going to come across the border to us, to Zimbabwe, to Zambia, to the rest of our continent. Maybe they'll head north, but I doubt so. It's probably going to head in this direction, and then it becomes our problem.
My favorite hobby horse is
So what did you say for me?
I'm saying my favorite hobby horse. Anybody that listens to the Burning Platform has heard me say this before. I think it's up to us, the individuals, as citizens of each country, as the voting citizens. We have to be more active. We have to be more active and not relegate our power to just anybody. We have to get to know who the people who our representatives are, and whether they actually do represent what we believe in, and hold them accountable. What tends to happen for a lot of people is you're happy to have voted or not vote, actually, and then, try and carry on with your life. And I think what we're seeing more and more is that actually no longer works, because it's on your doorstep. If you don't do anything about it, it's on your doorstep.
But who, Pumi? Who's there? Who's there
for
us?
You be there for us.
No. What I'm saying is, you say we have to look at who we're electing and stuff. Who is there? Because none of us are doing it. We're all sitting there on the sideline.
That's my point.
Having a fat wrap. We'll switch this thing off and we'll go watch DSTV afterwards. It's fine. And it's gone.
That's my point.
We don't get involved and we complain.
We shouldn't just be told. We should get involved.
Exactly.
We should get involved. You get involved. I must get involved. We must all get involved. Then you've got more power. Then you don't have to wait for Cyril Ramaphosa. You can be the next Cyril.
And I think the place to start is small, not big. People seem to
absolutely.
You need to be elected president. But if you can start in your own neighborhood, if you can become, and again, you don't even have to use conventional political methods to do this. You don't have to become your ward councillor in order to start making a difference in your neighborhood. Everybody's on these WhatsApp groups, right? These neighborhood WhatsApp groups. We all know how powerful they can be. They can help find someone's lost child if they go missing that afternoon. We know that these groups can make the electricity come back on faster than in times before we have to sit on the line to ESCOM. We know that these groups can make communities safer, and we know that there are means technologically that have empowered us, and these will continue to empower us. But I do agree with Pumi, like it starts with you. If you're just going to worry about yourself, and as you put it, go and watch TV, then you got no one to blame when all of it starts to crumble around you. Let's just focus on something very local and of great interest to us, because the vaccine rollout all over the world is going to start happening in certain places faster than in others. But I want us to be very pragmatic about this. Our government has not got a great track record of service delivery. And I'm very concerned that we're getting on this vaccine train. We know that there are going to be plenty of dodgy people involved too, who are going to profit hugely from
But why though? Why can't government just go procure directly? Why? Why must you have a middleman? Why can't the Department of Health just go and procure the stuff, and then you say, okay, cool, private hospital. Sorry, Gareth, I cut you off there. Sorry.
I think you got my point. I didn't even need the sentence. You know where it's going.
Sorry. Like, why must we involve anyone else? Like, this is quite a serious thing. This is your duty to your citizens. Get the hospitals, both private and public. You distribute it to them, and then you just go and get it. You get your shot. Nobody has to come in between all that stuff. Maybe the delivery company getting it from wherever it lands to getting to the hospital. That's about the only thing. And then people
I think the most concerning thing, though, for South Africa in particular, because our government is so inept, is the fact that they want to regulate for everybody.
Yeah.
So what the government has put in place is they want to regulate vaccines landing in the country. So if you are an employer and have 15,000 people that you employ, like a lot of mines do and that kind of stuff, you are unable to procure the vaccine directly and bring it into the country for your employees. And I think that's a big mistake. I think what government should be able to do is they should allow people who want to import it to import it.
Just do it.
And it can't all go through the government. I understand that they want to control people from having to profit immensely from it. But what they will never know is they will never know what the landing costs, what the refrigerating costs, what the transportation costs, what the dissemination costs are. They can never control all of that. And in fact, it is in the best interest of private companies to look after their own employees, which would work for everybody. If private companies were able, a Standard Bank has 6,000 people that they employ. If they looked after those 6,000 people, it's got a multiplier effect, So I think that it's blind and short-sighted of our government.
Pumi, like if I was government, right? If I was government and there was private sector who said, okay, cool, I'm going to take maybe 10, 15, 20 million people out of your care. You don't have to worry about these things. We've got no money currently. We've got no money. Where are we going to get the money to get these vaccines? So like private sector said, I'll look after my own people. I'll be like, happy days. I've got less people to worry about. Maybe we can get this stuff done.
Well, ironically, you two both find yourselves on the side of Solidarity and AfriForum then, who are suing government in order to prevent them from having a monopoly on being able to buy and disseminate the vaccines. So I think that makes a lot of sense. However, we've got to remember that we're also dealing with people who are ideologues, who believe that the state is still the best means of effecting change and delivering services to people, even though this state is
not. How's that been working?
Yeah, it's been going so well for 25 years. I mean,
not 25. We can't say 25 because it worked well for quite a bit of time. I mean, like it built the middle class. It gave me opportunity to sit here and speak to people like you, So I'm not going to discount those parts, but the ineptitude has started to show quite glaringly in the last 10, 15 years. But the first phase, I mean, like a lot of this country, like where we are, the economy of this country, I think we owe a lot to what was done in the initial phases of the transition. Like we were struggling before before apartheid ended, the country was going to the dogs. That's why, I mean, apartheid didn't end because people thought, shit, let's actually give blacks
rights.
Life. No, it's not that. It's because there's nowhere else we're going.
Let's not pretend that the old regime were squeaky clean. In fact, they were as corrupt. We just didn't know about half of it.
Exactly.
I don't want
but
us
that's fine. We park that. Exactly. We park that because this is where we're at now. We'll move forward.
You have no argument from me on that front, But here's something else that we need to think about. President Cyril Ramaphosa, it's Pumi's favorite, has hit out the ANC's Integrity Commission report into his appearance before it, saying it created the impression that he was delinquent in some way. So Cyril Ramaphosa is obviously fighting a battle for his own life within the ANC. This is something that we don't take enough cognizance of. And it makes every decision that he tells us about a lot more complicated behind the scenes than it is when he just does the family meetings. So we've got this massive factional battle going on inside the ANC, where there are two distinct teams, and the one team is deliberately trying to undermine the other team with no interest in whether or not people are dying of coronavirus or whether or not the lockdowns are hurting the economy, whether there's money in the bank, whether we'll be able to keep paying the social grants that we're paying, for example. And just this week, Aaron Motsoaledi, who's the Minister of Health now, said that we're going to have to put IDs and passports on hold unless you are a matric, which means that if, for example, you're an 80-year-old woman who's lost your ID or someone stole your ID or, you can't remember where you put it because you're 84 years old and you need to go and get your social grant, you're not going to be able to get that grant. These are the long-term effects that no one in government seems to consider. And a lot of it is coming from the factionalism. Now, do we believe President Ramaphosa when he goes after the Integrity Commission, says that you're trying to make me look bad? And should we say, let's first get through all the shit that we've got on our plate right now, or should we consider this as well?
Interestingly, Gareth, when that article came out, there were two reports, and somebody put it on Twitter. I think Iqbal and IOL were the ones that said Cyril lambasts the Integrity Committee, and EWN and ENCA came out saying Cyril he's welcomed the Integrity Commission and is saying they should hold him to account. So depending on who you're listening to as well, the same story, same words, but the spin on how they look at it. So the one sees Cyril saying, okay, fine, hold me to account. And the other one sees Cyril saying, how dare you hold me to account? So
that's because our media organizations are also backing certain factions.
But I think that the reality is that the ANC has got such deep ructions within it that the party is unable to operate. It's no longer able to operate, and it's mortally wounded, if you ask me. I don't know if the ANC is going to survive much longer.
And Pumi, I mean, like you said that, and I think it's good. Like, I honestly believe all the political parties in this country need a shake-up. Because, for example, like, we've gone through the Zuma years, right? And the opposition is really, like, the only opposition that actually gained ground is the extremists, right? You've got the Red Beret, you've got the FF+, those are the ones that gained. So the ones in the middle didn't really gain a whole lot. So there must be something that's not right there, or people can't find a home in any of those two. So they all need to just implode. Something new comes up, and we see how it works for us. Because, I mean, I struggle to find any examples of a liberation movement that is actually governed well post-liberation. It's hard to find. But then there's also opposition parties that seem to also be stuck in the past. I mean, like it just seems like they're not moving with they don't have their finger on the pulse of where the country's at, So maybe they all just need to because they're good parts in all of them. Like, I don't believe that the ANC is all bad. I don't believe that at all. There are definitely some good people in those because we get to work with them. And I don't believe that the DA is all bad either, But how you find common ground, because everybody is so keen on just being right or showing their point of view as the correct one.
Yeah, because that kind of behavior is rewarded. And like Pumi says, we've got to, on an individual level, take responsibility for the world around us. We also have to take responsibility for not allowing ourselves to become polar.
Give me a second. I just want to close the curtain. Sorry.
It also has to be our responsibility, Pums, to decide what kind of propaganda we to respond to and what propaganda we're not going to respond to.
Yeah.
And that goes, down to the individual on social media. This is why I'd prefer all of us to decide who we're going to follow and who we're not going to follow, and not let Jack Dorsey decide in Silicon Valley who he thinks we should follow or not follow. So this brings us to America. I've been promising for the last 45 minutes that we would talk about America. So what do we think the Biden administration is going to mean? What do we think it's going to mean for us here in Africa? What do we think is going to happen after he's inaugurated? Because Donald Trump has loomed like a colossus, whether you like him or not, over the last 4 years of American politics to such a degree that it almost hasn't been a discussion around policy. It almost hasn't been around ordinary political decision-making or democracy or the will of the people, or even things like the border, which, all of that became subject to Donald Trump's personality and the force of will of this one man. When he goes out of the system, which he's going to do whether he likes it or not, it's going to create a vacuum. Do you think that the people who are left are going to be able to fill that adequately, not just from a personality point of view, but also from a policy point of view? And what can we look forward to? Because there's got to be some silver lining.
You go first.
You know what? Like, one thing that I think would happen is the fact that there will be common decency, right? There won't be people. It seems like, like I've heard Joe Biden speak, and he is trying to preach unity, right? There won't be people swearing and insulting people just on a whim because they've got the platform, and that's at least for me, it's the world that I want to live in a world where, in as much as you might disagree with people, you will treat them with some sort of decorum and respect. So that's good. What I hope Joe Biden will do is, he's got a daughter-in-law who's South African. So I'm hoping that we'll come back onto the platform, in terms of how seriously they take this continent. I know in the past, though, that when Democrats are in power, Africa doesn't really get that much in terms of aid. But I also sit on the board of an institute that looks after HIV and TB research and management. And during the last 4 years, a lot of our funding has been cut quite significantly through this last administration. So I'm hoping that gets looked at, and hopefully we can go back to trying to do what we can to curb all these illnesses on the continent. So it gives me hope, right? It gives me hope. It's something different. It's something normal. I'm hoping that these guys will, like, I sit there in a lot of other different chat rooms, and people just throw out stupid words like socialist and capitalist and this and the next. Like, do those things actually exist in this world as we live now? Like, who is socialist? Who's capitalist nowadays? You can't tell me China is socialist. They're not, right? I don't believe that they are. You can't tell me Sweden is capitalist, because they've got one of the biggest socialist systems. So let's just look at what this administration is going to do. He seems to have put together a good a good bunch of ministers or how do you know? Thank you. Who seem credible? They look like they've got the pedigree to achieve what we need as the world. The funny thing is, though, it's like when Barack took over,
he looks like Hillary Clinton 2.0, and the same people that have been in politics for like the last 5 to 40 years. So if you wanted more of the same, that's what you're going to get. Don't expect surprises. However, after what we've had for 4 years, do you want a surprise?
Well, Buttigieg is in power. Buttigieg has got a role. He's someone new. Like the two youngster senators from Georgia, that's also very different. Like there is some difference, And
all right.
I just want to say something quickly. So just one more thing. Like when Obama took over, he took over at when there was the biggest depression ever, right? One of the biggest depressions ever. I think they managed to steady the ship and it started growing before 45 took over. And once again, there's another big depression in the world where Joe Biden's taken over. Let's see what they'll do, But it's not like they always land with their bums in the butter. Sorry, Pumi.
No. I think that the thing that we also seem to forget is that Biden was Barack's wingman for 8 years. So I think that we're going to see a lot more of that type of leadership coming back into American politics. Also, I think the fact that the Democrats now control every wing of politics in America is also going to give us a little bit more an even keel. It's not going to. Biden's very lucky in that he's not going to be dealing with a Senate that's very much against everything that he proposes and puts up. So I think we're going to see a steadying of the ship, but I think that America is going to suffer for a lot longer than what people think because of the past 4 years, because of the animosity that has been kind of created.
This predates Trump. There's a very smart guy I listen to sometimes who put it very well. Ben Shapiro. He gets a lot of heat from the left, but also from the right. He said Trump is not the murderer; he's the coroner.
No.
This murder took place a long time ago. This guy is the one who's there when they find the body.
Yeah.
I think that, Pums, to your point about how the entire political machinery is now Democrat controlled, right? With the exception of the Supreme Court, but as we've seen, they can be objective. These people were appointed not on political grounds, usually also just because they're good justices, whether they come from the right or the left. And we saw that with a number of them in the past. So the judiciary is the least political of the branches, and hopefully it'll continue to be so. But culturally, America is completely owned by the left as well. We've got to remember Hollywood is extreme left. We've got big tech, which increasingly seems to be leaning left. So there isn't really a space for conservative voices anymore. And I think that space is going to develop on the internet, and it's going to develop in dark places, which worries me. I think that unless those people are brought into mainstream, and unless we do see some sort of machinery for sensible, I'm not talking about extreme right-wing people, I'm talking about normal, moderate conservatives, people who believe in family values, people who believe in, separation of church and state, but who have their own belief system, which they consider to be integral to the kind of people they are. People who believe in personal responsibility as opposed to big government. Those people need to have a place to go to. They need to have some representation, not only in politics, but in the culture. Otherwise, they are going to tend to go towards the extremes because they're going to feel disenfranchised. And part of what we saw last week at the Capitol, and I'm not talking about the lunatics who stormed the Capitol, because obviously there's nobody in America who supports those people. Even Donald Trump has said, rather equivocally, but he said, those are not his people, and you should go home and you should...
Only now, because he's getting impeached, Gareth. Like, after that, he loved them. You guys are great patriots.
I'm not making excuses for him. But the vast majority of the people who did pitch up, and there were 100,000 or so people, those people didn't storm the Capitol, and they did go home, and they were peaceful. They weren't assaulting police officers or stealing Nancy Pelosi's lectern. Those people need to be taken seriously because they're just about half the population. And we can't just assume that they're not there because the Democrats have taken control of both houses of Congress and the presidency.
But it's funny, though. How do they get there? How do they actually get there? Their guy, Donald, got them there, right? Like they lost the stuff purely on the back of him and like his actions, and they backed him. They said, "You're our guy. You're the guy who represents us as the Republican Party." But anyway, I want to go back to Joe Biden. He's been in this thing for the longest time. I mean, the man's old, but I'm hoping that he's also one of those guys who will work with his counterparts, because he speaks of a united America. He speaks of a united America. So let's see. But you know what, dude? Like, I laugh because like a lot of people, like a lot of his speeches, like this is not us, this is not us. Like that is America. Like I'm writing a blog at the moment about what happened in the past. This is exactly America. Like if you look at how they've been treating people that aren't like all the presidents before Barack for the longest time, it just shows this is who they stand for. This is what they stand for. Like I was reading like stories of people that got lynched, Emmett Till. Like there's just so many. Like a lady called Mary Turner. Like if you read about her story and how she got lynched and they cut her stomach and they took the kid out and they stomped it. Like this.
How long ago is this?
No, it's a while ago. Like 1918 and stuff. But like Emmett Smith is 1955. But like if you watch things like When They See Us and 13th as well, like you get to understand this is woven into their fabric. Like how they treated those guys who were storming the Capitol. Like they knew this was going to happen. Like this guy has been tweeting about it. Like we're going to come march to the Capitol, blah blah blah, for the longest time. Like a week before, no one was there.
But if that's the case, then we need to we need to also hold, just as we will arrest and hopefully put in jail the people who stormed the Capitol, we need to hold the politicians accountable who made the decisions not to bring in enough police. That's Muriel Bowser, who's an African-American woman who's been running D.C. for a while now. When the Black Lives Matter people came and burnt down parts of D.C. and did also kill people, she went and painted Black Lives Matter in big yellow letters across the street in front of the White House. But she didn't employ enough people for the Capitol to be protected when a bunch of right-wingers came to town. This woman needs to be chased out of office. She's as useless as
if she is
politicians who just turn a blind eye to this stuff.
But okay, I mean, like, I'm not defending her, but I don't know what happened, because what I'm reading conflicting stories that she asked for the Capitol, like she asked for the, what do you call those people?
Not the reinforcement.
Yeah, she asked for them, and then nobody came. Like they were denied for the longest time until it got too late. So I don't know. I mean, if she is, and I'm hoping all the politicians that were complicit.
Your unity guy, Joe Biden, was busy attacking police and saying, well, the police didn't do their job on this one, and it's basically because the police are a bunch of racists. Meanwhile, the police that were there were being attacked by the very right-wingers who Joe Biden says are their friends. I mean, I think the 4 police people have been killed or seriously injured.
One killed.
Is it one police person?
One police killed, and then.
Yeah, I mean, listen, however this happened, it's outrageous.
No, it's ridiculous.
The fact that we had to watch this on TV last week, I felt so disappointed, not only in America, but in the world. But
why, though, Gareth? Because it showed us who they are. Like, it showed us who they are, because we hide all
this. Know that's who they are.
Yeah.
Maybe because I didn't. Maybe because I've just come to the realization you guys have. So, I'm still in a period of mourning at the moment, and I'll get over it. But maybe maybe the realism will set in again very soon. Either way, guys, we're out of time, and I appreciate I know it's crazy. It feels like 5 minutes. By the way, 2 policemen committed suicide.
Wow.
After that.
Yeah, we've got to think about what that means too. Pumi, thank you very much as always. Yao Pepper, thank you so much, sir. Nice to see you. And
likewise.
We'll catch up on the Burning Platform, same time, same place next week. It's all brought to you by Nando's. And we're going to bring a whole version of a whole slate of really interesting contributors to the Burning Platform this year. Yao, you are one of them. Thank you so much for being part of it today. And we will see you tomorrow, bright and early at 6 o'clock on cliffcentral.com. Cheers. Have a good day.